Okay, so the reason why I did this video is because in the last 3 years, with the Zeitgeist movement now finally decaying, and Peter Joseph is kind of like just going away, like fading from his former fame of the internet, and because Bernie Sanders has taken over his fame of what he's doing currently, and with Molyneux going on with the Trump bandwagon and dropping his narco-capitalism, going to the alt-right because the alt-right is rising, I thought it would be ridiculous of watching one of the best pieces of YouTube history ever is when Molyneux debated Peter Joseph.
Awesome.
Have you seen it?
I have not. It sounds fucking mental.
It is. I have dealt with myself, being very involved in a few years back with Occupy, have dealt with Peter Joseph. He's a fucking evil man, just like Stefan Molyneux was.
Well, yeah, I imagine he probably is, yeah.
Here we go.
Hi, everybody. This is Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. Hope you're doing well. I have the Zeitgeister himself, Mr. Peter Joseph. And I really feel that we needed to do a show together because clearly people with credentials and formal education have done nothing to solve the world's problems. And so it is up to rank and informed him.
Apart from all that technology and medicine and stuff, which has tripled the average age living expectancy of humanity, and meant that Stefan Molyneux doesn't actually have to do a proper job's work at all. Apart from that, they've done nothing.
It's so fucking ridiculous.
The problems of the world. So thank you, Peter, so much for dropping by.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Stefan. I'm not quite sure what you meant by that introduction, but it was certainly cute.
Cute is good. Well, no, I mean, actually, to me, that's kind of serious. You know, one of the things that's talked about a lot when you talk to people in the government or people in the media is, you know, we need more education. We need, if more people got educated, the economy would do better. And it seems hard to ignore the fact that most of the people who have either designed the system or participated in the system that blew up 40% of Americans' wealth over the past 5 or 6 years were all exquisitely well educated. The people at the top of the finance industry, the people at the top of governments, the people at the top of the regulatory agencies were all exquisitely credentialed up the yin-yang, all with doctorates and postdoctorates and so on. So I have a certain amount of skepticism for that kind of stuff, and that's why I was just sort of pointing out that we who have, I think...
Oh, wow. I mean, I've never seen a clearer example of something that's become stunningly obvious, is that the alt-right, or the kind of these fucking anarcho-capitalist dickheads, whatever, that kind of sphere, the anti-intellectualism and the anti-education is just disgusting.
Oh my God, it's so bad. And like Peter Joseph, dealing with him is anti-education, which I don't get why, but like, and I've dealt with his like Zeitgeist fantards before. They openly said they don't want socialism. They want Venus or like identity politics garbage. And it's not what it was about. I just feel like this debate, I feel like kind of like preempted the Trump Sanders coin ticket.
Well,
you got a thing.
Yeah, I don't even know what else to say. But fuck you, Stefan Molyneux.
Exactly. Okay.
Not necessarily having been sucked into and crapped out of the maw of academia might have some stuff of value to add.
At some point, education becomes indiscernible from indoctrination. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is kind of.
Oh God, the lack of self-awareness is stunning.
I know.
Stunning. You're literally cult leaders. That's what you think cunts are. What?
Both of Peter Joseph and Molyneux were cult leaders, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The defooing nonsense of Molyneux and the Zeitgeist movement are just modernist cults, nothing more.
The Zeitgeist, they call it like person of espionage, but they spell it differently acronym-wise than Scientology does. I cannot get into it.
Policy of sunk costs. Like if you have sunk so much into getting an economics degree, and then if you really have fundamental disagreements with the economic system, then you've really spent a lot of your time becoming a dodo about to be thwacked by the indifference of people who don't want to hear stuff.
Look at the fucking...
What does that mean? What did any of that fucking pablum mean? Molyneux just rips and comes up with word salad shite like that all the time.
I loved your the sound manosphere on him. Like we have like 45, 50%, 60. We don't know. Like
Yeah. Science.
To the system.
Sure.
So we got a couple of topics. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we dive in?
I think I'm excited to dive into the subject. I've sent a very loose train of thought to you that I think if we walk through it, will hopefully.
Oh, I shouldn't really interject because this is going to take forever. It's a fucking hour and 50 minutes.
I know.
But look at these two faces here. Have you ever seen two faces side by side that you more wanted to slap both of the cunts?
I know.
Really? Look at them.
I know. It's, but I do want to get into it because the later the show, like it just progresses into like a black hole for like the whole thing. Like
of what your proposals are, and of course my advocations. So I'm looking forward to it. So whenever you want to start, if you want to start with introductions and the like, that's up to you. I do have about an hour and a half.
You're saying, Kevin?
I didn't say shit.
Oh, sorry. I heard.
Working, but apparently that's my video camera simply can't keep up with my moves. I just turn into a blur. I look like a hummingbird's wing. But my introduction. My name is Stefan Molyneux, the host of Free Domain Radio. I did get a little bit of education. God help me. I have a master's degree in history, focusing really on the history of philosophy from the University of Toronto.
Can I just point out when he says I had a little bit of education? He likes to do this. He likes to pretend to be a man of the people. He was educated at an English private school.
I know.
I'll leave that there for you.
Acting at theater school, and I spent about 15 years in the entrepreneurial world, and then started broadcasting during a fairly long commute. Well, not really broadcasting, recording. And then I guess 6 or so years ago went full-time to rely on the tin cup of internet donation begging as the source of my income. And I really, really enjoyed the process. We were doing about 40 to 50 million downloads as a whole, over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, 20 million video downloads. And so, yeah, it's been a fantastic ride. I certainly appreciate everybody who's donated. And I've really enjoyed a lot of the films that you've put out, Peter. I'm just working my way through Culture in Decline, which I think I would absolutely agree with the title. And I've really enjoyed the work and effort. I've been working on a little documentary myself, and you know, anytime you feel like criticizing somebody else, just try walking a mile in the shoes they've walked.
That's very kind of revealing that Molyneux apparently was one of the people I hear was interviewed about the Circassian effect, but never actually made it into the film. I don't know. That's true or not. I could ask Jordan probably later.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Very telling, isn't it? From for late years away.
Well, this is the thing. When he says, "I agree with the title," you could mention that title to right wingers since the dawn of time. They will all agree with that title because that's the whole point of right wing social
movements.
Is that it's the culture is always in decline. You can never admit that the culture not being in decline. That's the whole point. It's whinging.
Gives you a kind of humility because it is a long and challenging process. So if you'd like to introduce yourself to my audience, I'm sure most of my people know you, but for those who don't.
Sure. I'd like to point out, though, of course, before we begin, that there's a tendency to become polarized in discussion, and we use this subject of debate, has been rolling around the internet, and I'm really fascinated by your work. I want to say that I'm really impressed. I never was familiar with your philosophical dispositions and the extent of what you understand. I really want to commend you on your ability to basically take really complex social subjects and reduce them down into a digestible form for the general public. So that said, my name is Peter Joseph Stalin. I am a New World Order neo-Marxist communist Satanist who, when not trying to get his beard to look as much like Vladimir Lenin or dress like Mao Zedong, am busy programming robots to speak in fluent, arrogant, anti-capitalistic Marxist dialect as I work towards my final solution, which is the installation of an all-seeing, all-knowing global supercomputer that will rule humanity by a rigid...
All right, we get the fucking joke. We get the joke. Move on, you cunt.
Bring about a socialist utopia that will end all human freedom and liberty forever. That joke aside, my name is Peter Joseph, and I grew up as a musician. I was very fortunate to go to an art school, which broke my indoctrination. I was very serious about classical performance, a very highly intellectualized 20th century music advocate. I began my interest in economics, which is the most pertinent point with this conversation, and philosophy by extension, of course, or by root extension, in about 2002, where I began to become fascinated with equity trading and the equity markets. I spent about 7 years as a private equity trader, coupled with basic entrepreneurship, running my own production company, and being, of course, a laborer and freelancer in communicative arts, being mainly video and audio production for commercials or various social media. So, not social media, but commercial media, I should say. So that's where my home is. And during the course of this development, I began to recognize that there's something deeply flawed in the fundamental principles of what we have going on in the world today. There's a decoupling, and I would say an out-of-dated type of referent, where people keep perpetuating the same type of traditionalism over and over and over again. And they don't seem to realize, even though they think they're doing something new, they think they're applying new concepts, they think they see a path towards resolution and change, they're just running in place because they haven't realized that, in my view, the current economic system and its fundamental predication is inherently flawed and really can't be altered until you transcend the market system by its foundational ethic entirely. So the problem isn't, the problem with, I think, when we have these discussions, when I think about what you advocate, is that it's so homogeneous with the current system. It's antiquated with respect to the current needs and capacity of the world. And the very principles you put forward simply do not have the mechanics to achieve such revolutionary ends. And I completely agree with your ends. I couldn't agree with your value system more so. And I can start to jump into these types of philosophical fallacies whenever you like.
Well, we were going to start, and let's, I think, take a swing at that, at the market system. Ooh, dun, dun, dun. And I'm going to give just a few minutes because it's a huge topic.
But basically, by questioning the market, it's like going up to a fundamentalist Christian saying Jesus is a prick.
I know. It's insane. I just wait. By the time we get around to like the 20-minute mark, if we do, it is fucking hysterical. It is fucking amazing.
Let's do this.
Down to a couple of principles that I think are important. The first principle, of course, is whenever you start talking about the market system, you have to make sure that people understand that it is not what is currently surrounding us and preying upon us like a pterodactyl vampire jackal on the very jugular of humanity.
That's such a bad, stupid joke. Oh my god.
Of the children's future. So what we have right now is a very predatory, fascistic style model for the most part in the West. There are three major areas where state control is absolute or close to absolute. The first, of course, is that the government controls money. And by here, I'm talking about most of the world, but in particular the West and in particular America. Government controls the money supply through the congressionally appointed, though never oversighted, Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve controls the money supply. The government has significant influence, if not outright control, over the interest rates. And whenever you have the government controlling money, then whatever is left over is like just a vestige of the free market. The free market fundamentally relies upon the non-aggression principle and the respect for property rights. And money, of course, is central to almost every transaction in a free market. And if the government controls money, then the government dominates what's left of the free market, because all entrepreneurial decisions are made within the context of not knowing what the hell the government is going to do with the money next or the interest rates next, other than a general certainty that the Federal Reserve is going to continue to serve the needs of political masters by printing more and more money for them to hand out like candy to those who support their agenda and wish for the benefits of their power. So, of course, the government controls money, and that is an almost absolute control. There's a little bit of Bitcoin chipping away here and there, but they're facing regulatory review now, and some of them have been shut down.
There we go, Bitcoin. We knew Bitcoin was coming off. Bitcoin, again, is a sort of semi-Jesus for these people. Never mind the fact that they're basically faltering and it will collapse any time. You know, never mind. Hello?
Yeah, I was just drinking something.
Okay.
There was a guy who came up with the Liberty Dollar, which was a gold-based currency.
Let me just say, when this after this happened, is around like 2014. The guy who made the Liberty Dollar actually is now facing 10 years in jail.
What a surprise!
It wasn't even like cryptocurrency. It was like the Liberty Dollar was like cryptocurrency, and he started printing actual physical. Like he was having people pay him monthly fees to get Liberty Dollars printed out into like under their name, and people just trade their Liberty Dollars for other Liberty Dollars with their like picture on it.
not a teenager's Monopoly money set or something.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I think he's currently in jail, and of course you are not allowed to pay your government bills with any currency other than the toilet paper that the government pretends has something to do with real money.
Okay, the guy with the Liberty Dollars was back in 2014 paid his fucking like taxes in Liberty Dollars and like the other half in Bitcoin. I was like, okay, what? Like,
what did you expect to happen there? Yeah,
exactly. Like,
so
you might as well say,
and
you should be able to pay the government therefore in bottle tops, because I've decided arbitrarily they're worth this much money.
I didn't know you were a fan
nonsense.
of Fallout.
Hey?
I didn't know you were a fan of Fallout. Fallout, the currency is bottle caps.
Is it? Well, there you go. Well, clearly those are worth a lot then. Somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, people are actually trying to manifest bottle caps as cryptocurrency. I don't know. I'm looking into it. There's some videos about it I've done about it.
Oh god! So I literally thought of the stupidest thing I could think of, and it's an actual thing. Brilliant.
Pretty much, yep. It is. I thought that you were making a joke about it. That's why I thought I brought it up.
No.
through taxation, of course, government controls, depending on how you count it, 30, 40, 50, or 60% of the wealth in the United States. And through regulation, of course, governments herd things around. There's more subtle things as well in that the stock market, I had some exposure by being a director in a company that went public, some exposure to the swarming herd of angry bees known as the stock market these days. Doesn't have really much to do with the original purpose of the stock market. And the reason for that is that billions and billions and billions of dollars are herded into the stock market through government policies that damn well shouldn't be there. The stock market is designed for knowledgeable people to invest in companies they know something about. But basically, I think here in Canada, it's called an RSP. I think in America, it's called a 401k. Basically, you have to hand your money over to money managers to invest in government bonds or stocks or the stock market as a whole. And if you don't hand it over to them, the government will take it from you by force, all of it. So much money is being herded into the stock market that the stock market has become hypercharged, overbloated. There's too much money chasing around, too few profit opportunities, which is distorting decisions that managers make in the stock market. So they start really focusing on short-term gain. The inflation, of course, of the government is perpetual.
Yeah, well, this is nonsense, though. The
Yeah,
nonsense of the fundamentally incorrect part of what these absolutist free marketeers go with is that they only, when you have nothing but that market, all you're going to have is the short-term goals thing. That's all that's going to happen there.
Oh, yeah.
That's all that's inevitable.
And they never really seem to bring it up. Like, I've actually asked these people, like, what do you do when those short-term goals don't make it? Or, like, oh, the reform do it. The free market will handle it itself.
Yeah, the invisible hand of the free market is, again, it's God.
Yeah.
Which is a phenomenon always and forever associated with government control of money, with what's called central banks, which is just another way of saying socialized money. Very different. I mean, in the 19th century, when...
God.
I know. It gets worse. This is right what I was talking about. This is the point where it deteriorates in a downward slope. Yeah,
I just want to punch Stefan Molyneux in the face. I mean, I don't even feel the need to make an argument. I just want to punch him.
Okay.
That's stupid.
Banks were largely private, and the gold was generally the medium of exchange, or at least the medium that backed money. The prices went down throughout. Can you imagine everything being computers, everything going down in price? Well, of course, what happens is when the government prints all this money, creates all this money, types whatever the hell they want into their own bank accounts. What happens is everybody says, well, shit, money's losing value. I better spend it, and debt is available because debt fuels the whole system. And so you get this rampant consumerism, destruction of the environment, overconsumption of resources. You get this crazy housing booms and busts.
How the fuck? This is the thing for the absolutist free market theorists. How would you stop any of that under your free market, no government system?
I know, it's going to increase it,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Shut up, you cunts.
15% of U.S. housing stock currently lies vacant. What an incredible predation upon the earth and its resources that has been. And so money, very briefly, of course, we all know government has a near monopoly over education, the edification of the young. And so when we look at bad decisions made by adult citizens as...
The edification? That's not what he thinks it means.
No, I know, exactly.
Edification means to be pleased with something, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in his terms, yeah, it is.
Oh, he's an idiot then. He doesn't understand the fundamentals of the English language.
Your work, there is a fundamental inability to reason, to think. The critical thinking, Socratic questioning is almost completely absent from public discourse these days. Well, government has the children for 12 years, or if you count daycare or pre-daycare, it has from 13 or 14 years, maybe even 15 years. And so the government is producing these citizens who can't think, who are susceptible to all kinds of manipulative advertising, who have a massive incentive to spend.
They're susceptible to you, you fucking idiot.
The same people that go to school don't want to watch him.
My brain is going to explode before the end of this, I'm sure.
I know. I really want to get...
thing.
I want to get to the point where Peter Joseph starts saying his crap.
Because of inflation and so on. And of course, there has, in the West, I would argue, been a breakdown over the past 50 or so years, largely as a result of specific government policies, a breakdown of the family, and particular absentee fathers.
How
right?
is that down to the government? How is that down to the government?
The gynocracy, quote unquote.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Hail vagina, yeah.
Children need to develop empathy. Empathy, I would argue, is the most important resource that we have in the world today, or we need in the world today, and empathy is on continual decline. The apathy and the general...
Anyone who wants to find out about how empathetic Stefan Molyneux is should go and watch his video on the murder of Michael Brown.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I watched that a few days ago, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. The one of Eric Garner's worse.
Yeah, but basically, whenever he's against government state force and action and violence until they're killing brown folk, and then he's just okay.
Exactly.
Inflation has doubled over the past 15 years. It's catastrophic. And two things that children need to develop empathy. One is free play in nature, which I think has been largely bypassed through a variety of things. And the other is the presence of a father. And these things have...
Not mother, though. No, mothers, fuck mothers. Mothers can't give any empathy at all. It's only fathers.
Which is so weird because 2 seconds ago we said single mothers. And okay, so the single mother now needs fathers. So it's like, what if it's a single father for about a month?
Yeah. He's full of shit.
Exactly.
Now pretty chaotic. I think about 90% of American women stop breastfeeding before the first year, which of course means that children have less bonding, less security, less health, right? Because it's very strong, very good for the immune system to be breastfed and so on. So there's all these problems, and then they get dumped in daycare, which causes a lack of bonding or a lack of capacity to empathize with others.
Sure.
So fundamentally, we have government controls money, government controls education, and government has largely disrupted the family through a variety of mechanisms, which has resulted in a very strange.
Which you were not going to mention.
No, he's not ever.
Insert that one, as if that's true in any way, you twat.
He never brings it up in his entire video. He just it's whatever.
Empty, sociopathic American psycho type system that is currently eating its own young and shitting in its own nest. And I certainly strongly urge people to look critically at the existing system. Whatever solution you come up with, it's almost hard to make it worse than where we're heading. So that's sort of my brief introduction to where I think Peter.
No matter what you do, no matter what you do, it couldn't get worse than what we're currently. What are you talking about? What about if we literally just went around and started shooting people dead in the fucking streets? What about if we went to some sort of Hunger Games scenario? What are you talking about?
I saw some ridiculous rumor going around that like a lot of
You've got to bear all of this in mind. He's reacting in this really pathetic way because he has to pay some taxes. That's it.
I've had a lot of AMCAPs. A lot of AMCAPs are talking about bringing the idea of the purge into reality.
Of course they are, because they know ultimately that that's where their society would head.
Exactly.
I absolutely agree with everything you stated.
Now we're gonna watch for about 10 minutes. Peter Joseph mouth off, and it's Stefan Molyneux's reactions are funny.
Where this root causality rests, where this power distortion, where this bubbling wave of insecurity and necessity by the state to conduct all of these affairs, where the crony capitalism, so to speak, where the interest to take control of the money originates in its core philosophical foundation. The fundamental principles that I want to put forward take everything you just said, which again I completely agree with, but you're not describing a root source of why these mechanisms are actually materializing. And I think that there's something very strong to be said for the fact that at the root of our survival is a very Malthusian presence. I'm kind of jumping ahead here based on the train of thought that I wanted to go through, but you've presented a whole slew of things. You're making my head spin because I see so many different forms of causality to link these issues together. But there's a deeply truncated frame of reference with respect to the way we think about what's possible on the planet, and we have continued to perpetuate the same fundamental fears and scarcity-driven ethos, which has inevitably led to the state, inevitably led to the various distortions, which take lives of their own, by the way. I know it's difficult to pull causality down to, say, one perception of competition and scarcity, and then extrapolate that all the way out and try to see why the U.S. government is dumbing down its children, or perhaps not even trying to per se, but the effect of that system is such, why there's so much structural violence, why there's so much crime, and structural violence is actually going to be a big part of this as well. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to come back to my original you're free to interject throughout this, but come back to this sort of three fallacy points that really get to a much farther root source, at least as far as my perception is concerned. Do you mind if I kind of slam through this?
No.
Okay.
Go for it.
I think that in this sort of anarcho-capitalist philosophical disposition, there are a series of arguments that are often used to idealize the free market, to idealize a free society.
I'm sorry I just told you to go ahead, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for those listeners who aren't aware, anarcho-capitalism is the argument that the non-aggression principle and property rights should be the foundational principles of society, since taxation is a form of theft and the government relies upon the initiation of force for its power. It is a stateless society that respects property rights and the non-aggression principle. I'm sorry to interrupt, but just I don't want to launch into technicals for people who are unfamiliar.
We could go crazy redefining terms when it comes to this. I'm going to more or less assume that most of the audience is familiar with what you're about and has a fundamental understanding of economic theory. So, at least in a historical sense. So, the first issue that jumps to me is what I call the denial of principle continuum. It's a continuum fallacy, or a matter of degree fallacy. This is the argument that presents two seemingly separate conditions that in truth cannot be considered distinct, as the same principle actually exists behind both of them. For example, the state, which of course I agree with your basic criticisms as far as effects, but the problem is that there's an erroneous separation of behavior and the creation of the state from the underlying philosophical principles inherent, and intense I should say, inherent to the historical premise of the market system. The market necessity of competition, self-preservation, differential advantage, and self-interest does not and would never stop at the traditionally assumed edge of the market board game, if you will, where the referees stand. It's like they have in a football game.
This is just Problem again. He was almost making a point then, and he just drifted up into board games and referee. He's talking shit again.
This is the whole thing for like the next hour, which it just gets worse and crazier and crazier. Because these two are just so evil and just so parallel. They're just pissing each other off.
Yeah.
Like that, when you consider what's at risk, the state and its creation and its its use for as a tool for differential advantage is simply another strategy or tool in the gaming strategy of competition. And I think that's an incredibly important point. So even if you reset everything right now, and I had this conversation with another friend of mine recently that was trying to describe this circumstance, and they said, well, if we just got all this stuff in place, it would start to amalgamate and it would change things. Even if you reset everything right now, including a lot of the central bank issues you just talked about, removing the so-called state, elements of the state would gravitate back towards force and coercion as you define it, regardless, because the principal economic observation of resource scarcity and the game theory of competition remains. And this worldview will always justify the need to maintain advantage over other producers and groups by whatever means necessary, as history has proven. Now, I could talk a lot about the history of the state, and this is something else I think I was going to address because I want to approach these three principles in one shot. But I think the one thing I should bring up, because I think it's important, is the historical failure to recognize the purpose of the state as it's existed in absolute concert with the development of economy. Whether you're talking about slavery, whether you're talking about feudalism, whether you're talking about mercantilism, whether you're talking about the version of free market capitalism we have today. Because I know you don't agree it's actually true, but I think it's exactly the state that it always ever will be and can be. This premise of economy is what supports political economy. It is underlying all political systems. Every single political system and its behavior always sources itself back to the root economic premise. So I'm going to go on to the second system, the second point of, second fallacy. And I call that the delusion of system contrary moral imposition. Sorry for the annoyingly intellectual statement. This is very simple. Imposed ethical assumptions.
No, you're not. No, that's the thing. That's the disingenuousness. He's not sorry for that at all. That's the whole point. This is what you're seeing here is a clash of two cult leaders trying to essentially the idea of bullshit baffling brains. That they just spew out a stream of nonsense that ultimately means fucking nothing, and it's just meant to make you feel like they know something that you don't, and they don't.
No, we don't.
They don't know shit.
It gets clear, very eye-opening in the last half of it. You'll see.
Moral codes that you see in the Bible or in traditional ethos that you find with philosophers that talk about right and wrong. Moral, ethical assumptions that stand in contrast to the psychology inherent and generated by the operant reinforcer of a given social structure simply will not endure over time. In other words, it's a psychological law of human adaptation that we will behave and game in accord with what is actually serving our interest most effectively in any given social order, especially when it comes to our survival and quality of life. It's fundamental operant conditioning. In other words, if you have a society that isn't structurally reinforcing the idealized behavior, it's not going to prevail as dominant. And this is stated because I hear you often speak of sort of ethical concepts, within the structure. And anyone that's, of course, dealing with philosophy is obviously thinking about what appropriate behavior really is, which, as an aside, I derive strictly from physical science. I threw out my books on general philosophy a long time ago because they're dated, they are antiquated, they don't have an actual physical referent for the language and the concepts that we're putting forward, but that's for another subject. But the underlying basis of market psychology is predicated on the assumption that resource scarcity and hence the need to compete for such means is prevalent. And this creates an immutable necessity to draw power and discount the well-being of others. No matter what the prevailing fashion of moral code is, it will always rise to the surface whatever is being enforced by society. In other words, a free society based on true human equality, which I think you and I both very much want, is actually impossible. Reinforcers are not there at all. And the final fallacy.
Now, sorry, do you want to? Because I have a couple of questions, but certainly I don't want to interrupt your flow too much. I'm happy to wait till you finish the 3 points.
I can jump back in. This next one actually is going to go to describe the flaws in your concept of coercion and voluntarism. That's going to be a tricky one. So let's go ahead and talk about whatever you need to with respect to what I've said prior.
Now, when you were a stockbroker, did you have customers, or were you trading on your own behalf?
I wasn't a stockbroker. I was a private equity trader. I traded from home.
So you traded it on your own behalf?
Yes.
Okay. And I mean, I'm asking that not because I'm sort of trying to trick you in some way, but just because there's a lot of people who haven't actually run a customer-facing business or a customer-focused business. When you said that the competition relies that you discount the well-being of others, if you run a business and you have customers, of course, your customers are there with you by choice, right? Assuming your business isn't, say, Monsanto or Microsoft or other companies which rely on state privilege, Halliburton, Blackwater, all these kinds of nasty entities. But if you are in a I was in the software field, which is sort of the Wild West, so to speak, which means the most peaceful and progressive of the areas left of the free market. If you have customers and they're there with you by choice, if you discount the well-being of your customers, you're out of business in about 90 seconds. You really have to...
Molyneux, you twat. Even if we accept that that's true, which isn't necessarily, because you can shit on enough of them and it doesn't really make much difference. But what about the other people? What about, like, for instance, Nike or Adidas or whoever who make trainers in sweatshops and pay their staff 2 cents a week, right? The people who buy those shoes, your customers, you're not shitting on them, but you are shitting on everyone else in that chain to that point. Yeah, that's the point.
Oh, totally. Yeah, like you heard about, you heard about the recent drama of Beyonce, right?
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of people who make their products in America who are musicians, like the Dropkick Murphys, and like I think NoFX got pissed at her because they make all their products in the United States.
Yeah.
On providing voluntary value to your customers and maintaining that value over time. You wake up in the morning as an entrepreneur and all you do is think about how you can make your customers happier, how you can make their lives easier. Now, of course, you're doing that for the cause of profit, but profit is how you measure whether you're being good or effective at reducing value for your customers. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Let's not deviate too much. I'll give you, since you brought up an anecdotal case of my former profession as a private equity trader, I'm going to go back a little bit farther to my former profession as a manager in a video production house that I worked in, probably one of my first main long-term jobs when I got out of college. I worked for a company that slowly over time started going bankrupt. This company hired about 20 people. We downsized to about 10 people. They began to lie to all of us. All of our paychecks went back about 5 months. I went up and talked to them in pure honesty to try to figure out what was going on. They just described, and they were basically lied to us in effect that they were just waiting on this, this, and this. I found out later that they were officially going bankrupt, which meant that I couldn't go to small claims court to get the money that I wanted. I had to pay my rent, which I was late on. I had to do a lot of things along with everybody else in the entire arena that hadn't been paid whatsoever, the employees. The people that owned it did not mean bad. They had a general market failure, the market correction that generally happens. Their product was inefficient. What did that create? That created the necessity for them to extend out as far as they could so they could feed their children, to screw all of us by necessity. There was one guy there who was on a visa that they owed about $15,000. He was officially a slave because he couldn't even be in the United States without their support of the visa. I had to take all of my work off of their servers and hold it ransom in order to get the money that they owed me away from their pockets and their children's mouths because I had to pay my rent and feed myself. That is the true face of the market economy, my friend.
His whole story sounds so convoluted, the whole aspect of it. Like, I know this does happen, but it makes me wonder, what was the company he was working for? Like, what was their he said it was a brand at first.
Yeah, it's difficult to trust anything either of these pricks say.
Yeah, exactly. It was Blockbuster, I believe him, because the way he made it seem, it was like a small business, but he said it was a corporate brand. Yeah. So yeah. I'm wondering what company it is, because there was Video Flick, there was Blockbuster.
Right, yeah, and it's impossible to know whether any of this ever happened.
Exactly.
To know any of it's true, because I wouldn't give the benefit of the doubt to either of these fucking hucksters.
And you can idealize all of this stuff about voluntarism and how you just have to. There's a natural ebb and flow, and if you just do this, this, and this, that no one will be suspect to exploitation or abuse or the inherent violent coercion that is structural. But the true face of the market, especially when you look around at the truth of reality, I look at the truth of reality, not the theory. When I look at the world today with, say, one person dying every 3 seconds unnecessarily, when I look at the fact that
thinking about Peter Joseph's first documentary being a YouTube crowdfunded based documentary really begs to differ. Like, everyone who's tried to do it failed. Owen and Rainey failed. He failed after the 5th one. So it just shows you that YouTube based crowdfunded films are not meant to be.
Yeah, basically.
In truth, based on UN distinctions of human trafficking and what slavery means, there are today more slaves in the world than ever before in human history. When I speak to the truth of the fact that every single life support system is in decline due to resource exploitation, equal exploitation that goes on the human side, applied to the abuse of the topsoil, abuse to everything that we're doing, to destruction of water resources, this is a dramatic failure that we're seeing across the board, destroying public health and destroying ecological health. So,
all right, but let me just give you a slight counter, though. So you're talking about, and I'm sorry you had this experience. Definitely, these are not people with a high sense of moral integrity when it comes to the marketplace.
Neither of you guys are.
You mean, yeah? Well, hang on, not just that, but you mean a capitalist?
Yeah.
That's my definition of someone without a fucking high sense of moral value.
Ugh.
Well, you're talking about how somebody was being subject to a visa, and that, of course, is a government thing. You said that through bankruptcy you could not use. Sorry, let me finish my point, then I'll be quiet. You said that through bankruptcy proceedings you could not retrieve your money. Well, bankruptcy is something that is invented by the state. I don't actually agree with it too much. I think that bankruptcy is pretty terrible, the way it's currently worked. And the second,
okay, how would you, in your ANCAP world, how would you deal with bankruptcy then?
A lot of them advocate. I've done research on this, and AMCAP, so they believe that like when they go bankruptcy, you basically restart from zero with the recycling of the money from the other community around you. So basically, if a person goes bankrupt, everyone voluntarily has to give the money if they want to voluntarily to you to start up your own company back up from zero.
Well, again, but that's voluntary. What about if people decide not to?
Then exactly. Then they go to apply force, but it breaks the non-aggression principle. It's just this ridiculous, logical, cognitive sense crap. You were saying?
No. I've just said that's it. With all of these systems, they have these great ideas of charity will solve it, or this will do. You know, people can volunteer. But if people decide not to do that, how do you solve the fucking problem?
That's why a lot of them are advocating the purge system these days, and a lot of them are also advocating looking into it. Like a lot of them are advocating that's why the alt-right isn't a thing. It's on the rise. It's like a lot of the right is tired of anti-state garbage because the anti-state garbage can't get shit done.
Exactly. Yeah.
You basically couldn't get your money back from these people who lied to you. I would imagine that they were shielded behind a corporation, which is a government-created and government-controlled imposition on the free market, which has, in the industry itself.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't, Molyneux, you lying piece of shit. This is the thing. Whenever anything bad happens in a free market, it's always the government. It's never some greedy cunt. No, it's always the government.
I was really surprised that Molyneux was quiet on the whole Fine Brothers situation because Thunderfoot came out against him and all of these other guys he hangs around with did. He was silent on it.
No, I'm not.
Like, you get my point, though, right? Like the free market garbage, like the Fine Brothers tried doing?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people who were voluntary spoke against it. I don't know why Molyneux didn't.
Oh, who knows?
Who knows?
before there were corporations, people who ran financial companies were personally liable. They could lose their houses. They could lose their, I guess, horse and buggies back in the day. And then they went to the government and they said, we'd really like a legal shield so that we can take money out of the company. But if the company does anything bad or illegal or loses money, nobody can get us for the money that we've lost for them. So governments handed over this lovely little legal shield called a corporation. But again, visas, bankruptcy court, corporations, these are all government things you're talking about. I'm not sure what that has to do with the free market as I'm talking about it.
Absolutely not. The use.
Molyneux, you're talking about a free market that has never happened.
I know, exactly.
You're talking about capitalism that has never existed. So what is the point? When they make these arbitrary distinctions, that's corporatism. Well, that's all we've ever known then. We've never had a free market. A free market is basically impossible.
A lot of AIMCAPs who are more monarchists or less like AIMCAP have argued that the East Indian Trade Company from England was its own voluntary estate or some shit like that.
No, it wasn't. That was an imperialist back.
No, I know. I'm saying a lot of right-wing monarchists do argue that it was its own imperialist free market state.
Well, that's not true. I mean, that's just not true.
No, I'm asking you. You know better than I do, but that like they do.
Oh, it was an imperialist-backed borderline slave state.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I'm saying like a lot of monarchists just argue that it was a voluntary slave state that was also a free market state within itself. I've seen it before. I can send you links or whatever.
Oh, these people are mad.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
liars. Oh, yeah. That's the biggest one.
Yeah, manipulators.
Yeah.
Advantage. Obviously, first of all, the government is run by the higher end entrepreneurs of our world. The ownership class has been running the government since day one. It is an extension of the market system. Of course, they're going to go to the government and coerce them, or not coerce per se, or get them on their side so they can actually have the benefit of having a corporation that has no legal responsibility. That is a natural outgrowth of the gaming strategy inherent. There are no rules.
I want to know. Where's the barking coming from?
My dog.
Oh, it's your dog?
Yeah.
Oh, because I was thinking we should probably sort your dog. What's wrong with it?
No, whenever someone walks them down the hall, the dog gets nervous.
Oh, okay.
It is the fallacy of concept, the fallacy of naivety, that these types of actions and the development of power forces that override the precious ideal of the free market, it is this fallacy that runs so concurrent with this kind of delusion of market economics that it just makes you want to pull my hair out. And I'm gonna continue that because the truncated distinctions, the final fallacy is exactly what needs to be brought up here. Truncated distinctions, which is.
I want to stop right there. Here, I feel like watching this. Molyneux, you can just see he's peeking with his passive aggressiveness. You can in his eyes, not really in his face. But you can see it, right? Can you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is again what you've just spoken of. This means that certain ideas which appear to have integrity are found to be, in truth, too narrow in their consideration to be deemed viable philosophically or empirically. In other words, the true underlying meaning and purpose claimed to be represented is substantially misrepresented, and hence the concept becomes empirically good. For instance, there are two words I hear constantly speak of in your community and your general philosophical treatments. One is coercion, the other is voluntarism. Both of these terms, while accurate in your narrow use with respect to economic and behavioral theory, are in truth irrevocably short-sighted when compared to the spectrum of real-life patterns and possibilities regarding the most relevant
You were saying?
That is a zing. That is a free market burn right there.
Yeah, it is.
Component principles of those terms. Let me give you an example, because I know that might have sounded enormously extensive and intellectual.
A lot of adjectives. I'm looking for some proof.
Well, let's take the notion of coercion. Well, I'm giving an argument. What is the practice? Coercion. Let's define coercion. What is coercion? Define coercion for me, just so we can make it simple and interactive here. What's coercion?
Yeah, I mean the initiation of force or fraud against somebody who's not the initiation of force and fraud. Okay, is the easiest way to talk about it.
So under the surface, it's about imposing. It's about controlling. It's about abuse. It's about violence. It's about induced suffering. So if we look at this kind of induction or infliction of suffering, I want to ask you a question then, because it's really about resolving suffering at its core. It all becomes moot when it comes to the system process. In the context of economics, I see your point, but let's get down to the core of this. If there was a disease that in one country was killing 200 people, and in another country, another disease was killing 200,000 people, which disease would you focus on? Obviously, you'd focus on the one killing 200,000 people, right?
I'm not sure why that would necessarily follow.
Well,
that one's like,
Oh, for God's sake.
oh my God, this is the level of manipulation we're dealing with right here. A pinking of non-belief.
You would want to resolve that disease that is killing the most people, that has the people that have the least immunity.
If they're in the same region, 2 countries apart, it's most likely the same disease, logically.
Well, not just that, but if the 2 people are white, but the 200,000 people are black, we know which one Molyneux is going for.
Exactly.
Or the least defense.
No, sorry. Again, I'm not sure why that would necessarily follow. I mean, what if my daughter was one of the 200 people? What if I were one of the 200 people? I might find an incentive to focus on the 200 rather than the 200.
Exactly. Being a selfish prick is definitely. Do you know he goes on about universal moral behaviour?
Yeah.
Apparently, according to Molyneux, that means being a selfish prick.
Look at that face. Of course I am.
Brilliant. Just brilliant.
You split that as much as you want, but when it comes to general public health, if you ask any public health official and statistician which would be the greatest threat, which would rapidly produce and maybe take over the whole world, if it's that viral, obviously they're going to resolve the disease that's killing the most people. Now, with that in mind, are you familiar with the concept of structural violence?
No.
Okay, well, it was featured in Zeitgeist moving forward quite extensively and is the crutch of a very important philosophical view, a moral and ethical view when it comes to what's happening in the world today. While we all understand behavior...
No, it's not. It's one of the pieces of mumbo-jumbo, woo-woo shit that your movement has invented.
No, structural violence was actually invented by Bakunin.
Was it? Oh, I don't really... Well, whatever it is, it's used in that way. In the same way that Molyneux uses defooing as his...
Yeah.
They've all got their little bits and bobs of nonsense.
Yep.
Policy violence, which is often, what you refer to by government or state coercion. Structural violence is mostly hidden, and it deals with chain reactions sourced to certain broad institutional influences. And if you read this book, if you read these studies, which they're extensive, I recommend Harvard criminal psychologist criminal psychologist James Gilligan, who headed the center at Harvard for violence many years back, an absolute expert on violence and its sources and its root form. He talks about this extensively with tremendous sources. I would drop that just so people can research this. So what happens here is that there's a defining characteristic that occurs that you deem all the way down to what's called structural or social inequality. Social inequality is one of the most insidious attributes in the world today with respect to public health. It manifests in absolute form, which is, say, poverty, and it manifests in relative form, which is basically development of psychosocial stress. If you're familiar with the work of Gabor Mate, he talks about this type of idea at length as well. So long story short, structural violence is in fact and unequivocally the leading cause of death on the planet Earth. In a 1976 study, I believe it was called the Empirical Table of Structural Violence. I can't remember the authors, but anyone can punch this up. It was found that 18 million deaths occur each year because of essentially inequality and structural policy based around or that generates inequality. And guess what the root of this inequality is? The state cannot be held as some root catalyst of inequality or the other fallacious external terms such as crony capitalism, which again harp upon the first fallacy I put forward, because the same fundamental principles exist. You can't differentiate capitalism from crony capitalism. It comes from the very root source of our socioeconomic principles, the market itself. It is an explicit and direct consequence of the gaming of competition and advantage. It's a mathematical inevitability, and you can see. Okay,
I'm gonna stop there. There's this guy from Germany around 2015-ish, early, who literally put together the math calculations for an economy, put in Peter Joseph's film, they just don't fucking add up. The formula is correct, but other mathematicians came and saying the formula is correct, but numbers don't exist theoretically. There you go. The woo for you, fucking woo.
By simply comparing different countries based on their rates of homicide, rates of violence, rates of death based on poverty, associated to the level of inequality that's in their country. And if you extrapolate from 1976, there have been about 600 million people that have died due to poverty and inequality in all of its forms, absolute and relative. And that isn't even accounting for the gross increase in inequality we've seen globally as well. So with all due respect.
Sorry, but what is the definition? What is the definition of structural violence?
Excuse me. What is the definition of structural violence? Wow, look at me being a cunt. My own, like, his tone is so cuntish. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Well, this is the thing. You're dealing with two con men trying to con one another.
I know.
The immovable object and the irresistible force.
Yeah.
The violence that is imposed, well, it depends on who you ask because it's become more of a general term, but in its traditional state, it took only into consideration the effects of social inequality. But today you'll find other researchers describing the structural violence of, any type of institution that has a causal link. For example, a type of structure.
The problem is there's so much stuff.
Give a definition, you twat. You haven't given a single definition yet.
I know, like Peter Joseph speaks in whispers and tongues and stuff like that. Like he's a wise wizard in the forest.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if you actually fucking gave like any information back with facts and numbers, it could actually be like a standpoint or ground to something to speak on. Like Peter Joseph knows.
So far, he's made Stefan Molyneux seem eloquent.
I know, that's my point. Yeah, it's hard to explain. I'm trying to say, basically, I'm just trying to say, Peter Joseph speaks in, these catch-all phrases and, manipulation. It's
he speaks like Stefan Molyneux does, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. But, I could agree with so much of what Peter Joseph says. In fact, he's an evil, obnoxious person who I've met personally twice. And let me just tell you, the Peter Joseph off-screen is not a nice man.
I'm not surprised.
Violence linked to, I think poverty is the easiest one because it sprawls out in so many different ways. A mother, for example, I know, for example, you talk about children a lot. You talk about how the root of our values and such come from parenting, how important that is, and I absolutely agree. But what isn't being counted is the fact that all parents are subject to an enormous amount of pressure. If a parent first of all, the leading cause of divorce is financial. I think we all know that. And divorce has had a tremendous psychological effect on children. There's a whole spectrum of these things. But I often use the example of a woman. She's a single mother. She gets fired from her job. It wasn't her fault she was fired. They just had to downsize for whatever purpose, basic market correction. She's unable to take care of her child. That child she can't afford health care. She can't afford to have a babysitter. She deals with whatever she can, and she's loosely been able to take care of this child because of the pressures around her. She doesn't have the means to do so. One day, the child stumbles and has some type of accident that would not have happened if there was actually the condition for that parent or parents to properly have the capacity to take care of their children. And this spirals out into the sphere of public health. It's incredibly important. If you're not familiar with it, I'm absolutely amazed because it is the most important attribute and why I am so disgusted by the market system, because it reinforces inequality more than anything else. Every single historical text that goes back both in criticisms of abdication of capitalism have denoted this inequality, much harped upon by people like Thomas Malthus, who firmly ingrained the need or the propensity or the assumption that there isn't enough to go around and therefore inequality is inevitable. And I can go on a long tangent about all the other distortions that arise.
I just have to interrupt for a second because I just looked something up. You said that the leading cause of divorce was economic problems. At least according to the top 5 reasons for 2000 level matrimonial survey by Grant Thompson in the UK. The number 1 reason is falling out of love. That's 27%. Extramarital affair is number 2 at 25%. Unreasonable behavior at 17%. Midlife crisis at 10%. And emotional or physical abuse at 6%. The last stuff I read in North America was that the majority of divorces were initiated by women, and the number 1 cause was...
I love how this is initiated, like it's like initiating force to divorce someone.
Yeah.
Did you catch
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's slimy wordplay again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Satisfaction.
Okay.
And
Well,
so,
I appreciate
just if you can
your-
give me the source for the
I
economic stuff,
appreciate-
that would be great.
Oh, I have at least 3 texts that source that. First of all,
I love the fact that Peter Joseph is wearing like a gamer headset, and like this guy's supposed to be like a renowned philosopher thinker wearing this shit on his head.
Yeah, well, just after this finished, he went, "Fuck you, noob," and no-scoped him. It was brilliant.
things run into problems all the time. Almost every single person I've seen get divorced has had tremendous financial issues. I've read that statistic at least 5 times. I will email you that statistic. And if that isn't actually correct anymore, I can assure you it is a very large part of what's happening in the world as far as familial problems. Almost every argument I have with my girlfriend these days revolves around money. So you can take your little isolated dismissal of that and run with it. That's fine. I don't care. It's completely irrelevant to the point at hand. And that's the structural issue.
That sounded a little bit insulting. Take my little isolated dismissal. You provided information that I had counter information to. Is that not allowed in this conversation?
No, but I think it completely bypasses the point I'm trying to make. It utterly bypasses and creates a distraction.
I'm sorry. If facts contradict the point that you're trying to make, do you not want me to bring them up?
No, facts don't contradict anything. You can nitpick about certain issues all you want, but you're distracting from the actual structural violence issues I'm trying to talk about. So someone listening to this
This is the I told you at the half point mark. This is when this shit starts. And
this is oh god, these people are dickheads.
I know. Oh, fucking great, isn't it? In a very dark way, like a very dark sense.
Oh yeah, it's toe curling stuff. Yeah.
To what I'm actually pointing out. Listen, I'm highly fallible. If I run any type of stat and it's found to be wrong, first of all, I'll show you my source. Happy to send it to you. But I would like to focus on what's actually critically relevant here, and that's the source of structural violence. Let me get back to my point. With all due respect, when I think about this reality of structural violence,
it just occurs to me what we just saw there, that little flare up. That was 2 con men who've been diverted from their scripts by the other.
Yeah.
And they're both desperately trying to get back on track with their version of reality, which is not real.
I know, exactly.
People and more that die every single year unnecessarily due to inequality and poverty, from absolute and relative deprivation. And I listen to heady Austrian economists talking about the inherent violence and
the fuck?
I don't know. Molyneux does that a lot in this video. He like doubles the screen.
In the wake of unnecessary, I should say, daily mass murder originating.
Peter Joseph got really ugly.
I know.
Constant wealth imbalance, and all the problems.
At least he got rid of that beard.
I think it would be really funny if Molyneux started wearing it like a really shitty toupee, like from like a wig store.
He should. Well, in honor of his new favorite leader, he should get a Trump.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. A little Trump on his head.
The kind of dead ferret look.
Wait. Are you saying that the market system, first of all, income tax causes a huge amount of stress on marriages? Income tax has been argued to be the primary reason why you need a 2-income household and kids are getting dumped in daycare. So if you're going to...
Where the fuck is he getting this information from?
Yeah. Income tax used to be much higher before women could even work.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he's getting that nonsense from. What?
His own echo chamber of insanity. Neil Molyneux is really not liked by a lot of other ANCAPs. Like, a lot of ANCAPs are rejecting him lately.
Rejecting who, sorry?
Molyneux.
Well, I'm not surprised. The fact that they ever liked him suggests to me that they're idiots.
Yeah.
That marriage has problems because of financial pressures, and then you're going to dismiss the income tax, which is the largest single bill that most couples have. I think you might be missing the point. And second, you're talking about how the free market, engages in mass murder. Can you step me through that? How the free market, without the money and power of the state and the weapons of the state,
always the state.
It's perpetual and constant inequality by its structural design. Period.
So the free market creates inequality, is that right?
That's correct.
So when cell phones were first introduced and they cost about $10,000 each, and now you can get a cell phone, like a burner cell phone for like $20 or $30, that is somehow creating inequality in the distribution of cell phones in society?
That's a completely arbitrary example because you're taking one instance of a particular service.
Real world example.
And also, by the way, the cell phone was created by technologies funded by the government. So that's not free. That's crony capitalism.
CIA, exactly. I had a burner phone for a long time. Very long. They suck.
Not just that, but if we look at iPhone, Apple got a $500,000 grant, but as a startup company, from the evil state. So, sorry, you can't use that as capitalism, mate. Under your crony capitalism dichotomy.
The only thing that's close enough is to like his weird view of crony capitalism. I mean, like a voluntary capital is probably McDonald's, any fast food chain from the 50s upwards, or even Nike or no, Adidas was created by the Third Reich, so it's Nike.
Sure, it's completely absent of the point I'm trying to make in the broad statistical view.
No, it's not absent. You're talking about how the free market creates inequality, but the free market is constantly trying to get cheaper and better goods into the hands of people. That's how you make money. You can see this happening with computers. You can see this happening with cell phones. In any place where the market is really allowed to operate, prices go down and feature sets go.
Computers and cell phones, the internet was not created by the free market, mate.
No, it wasn't. CIA. And I guess also KGB, if you count the Soviet Union.
Those were first introduced. They cost what a car costs now. Now you can pick up a microwave for $49 at Walmart. So just about every household has a microwave.
The microwave, the technology from the microwave directly resulted from nuclear research done by the state.
Yep. Which
so you can't have that one either, Molyneux. Where's your free market examples, mate?
The only one you can think of is like property rights, and that's like ancient history. Like,
yes, the Corn Laws, brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Household has a color TV. Just about every household has an internet service. So the fact is that it doesn't seem, I mean, I agree with you, inequality is growing in American society at the moment, but I would argue that's because of the growth of the states, nothing, because the free market is diminished in its capacity to drive down the prices of goods and drive more of the acceptance of goods into poorer households.
I'm speaking of pure statistics. I'm speaking of research that's been done. I'm speaking of the broad view. I'm not speaking of the fact that, yes, there are more material possessions in the hands. And yes, the poor.
When I give you like 5 examples in a row, you can't just dismiss them all and say you're speaking of some broad view, right?
Because
I mean, that's just substituting an abstraction for an example.
No, but you can dismiss them. You can dismiss them all because they're examples of crony capitalism, as you describe it.
The only thing I can think of it's purely voluntary, even to this day, is Coca-Cola.
Is it?
Yeah, it wasn't created by the state. Coca-Cola was created in...
It wasn't created by the state, but certainly states in South America that have used right-wing death squads to kill trade union leaders.
Yeah. I'm talking about way back. I'm talking about way back, like companies from like the 1800s still today. Like it started up voluntary and could make still.
I guess so. Yeah.
The broad concept, the broad statistical point I'm trying to make. I agree with all of those points. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying the fact that, for example, the poor of the United States are much better off than the wealthy many hundreds of years ago in material terms. And that's another subject that I could go on a tangent on, but to stay within the point I'm trying to make here, the inherent inequality that has been with the market economy, been really with the entire ethic of the institution of formalized the institution that is built upon scarcity and the need for human exploitation, which is what this system really roots itself down, and is the necessity for people to get advantage so they can survive at the expense of others. Sometimes it works out, but there's a general imbalance, and this is the underlying ethic. This element has created constant imbalance throughout the entire course of capitalism and before. It's a fundamental ethic, and yes, 600 million people have died unnecessarily in the wake of a fucking technical reality where we can feed, clothe, and house, and provide health care, and resolve pretty much all of the fundamental needs and abundance of energy to every single human on Earth. I'm talking about reality to the extent when I look around, I see this game that we're playing that has all of these hideous byproducts, and yet we're not doing the things that could actually bring the technical things to fruition. And why can't we do those technical things?
Okay, so
I wanted to just funny story. I remember back in early 2013, right before Zeitgeist and Peter Joseph kind of faded from fame and into complete obscurity. He was invited to speak at the debate at the U.S. Green Party, and they told him to not show up. But when he showed up,
nice.
to the mass murder example? Because look,
not
you and I don't have to disagree. There's no point debating on whether it's bad that millions of people are dying. You and I
You
think
see the fucking eyes in his face who said that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
very committed to that. So I fully accept that. But you did talk about how the free market produces mass murder. We'll get into exploitation because that's a term I always have some trouble with. Doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means I don't understand how you're using it. But if we
That was so fucking manipulative right there.
It's standard man practice, yeah.
Yeah.
to the mass murder example, how is it that the free market produces mass murder in the absence of state power?
The market system's inherent fundamental premise is based on scarcity. It's based on the assumption of having to gain at the possible
No.
expense of
The free
others.
market, no, that's just incorrect. The free market system is based on a respect for property rights and the non-initiation of force.
your
Scarcity
definition.
is a fact of nature.
Scarcity is a fact of nature, but it's not as much of a fact of nature as it has been. And the great shift, which I'll talk about as we talk about a new economic model here, the great powerful shift is that the scarcity focus is no longer necessary as the focus of social economic unfolding. It's the
So what you're saying is scarcity is not foundational to the free market. Scarcity is a fact of reality.
I'm saying scarcity is certainly a fact of reality, but not in even remote proportion the way it used to be. The problem what's happened now is the market premise is predicated on the assumption of scarcity, and everything is built upon that. Everything is navigated around this assumption that there isn't enough to go around, hence the concept of economizing, which we all know. The new trends today, the great transition that's occurring in human thought today and our industrial capacity to create an abundance and post-scarcity is that we need to orient our system towards the interest to create an abundance, not towards the interest of preserving scarcity, which is preserving the integrity of scarcity to make sure people don't go, insane and start to battle each other through war. So it has its role, and it always kind of will in a certain principle, but we're never going to achieve a post-scarcity world. We're never going to see balance. We're never going to see social equality in the truest terms. I think back to Martin Luther King, and his final interest was equal pay for all society, because he knew that racism and the bias of bigotry really didn't stop at the perception of color of skin. It was built into the economic model. Gandhi saw this as well. In fact, Gandhi was the highest observer of structural violence in his intuition, who said, poverty is the worst form of violence. Coming back to my original point.
Gandhi was also a racist, by the way.
Who?
Mahatma Gandhi was also a massive racist.
Incredibly racist and sexist too.
Yeah.
And larger and larger extensive inequality, you cannot argue that the state alone is the only interference attribute that enables the type of extensive inequality that we see. Because all you have to do is compare different countries to see the difference between those that have very rigid controls, hence state control, not necessarily in the highly coercive way that we see in the U.S. tax system and the like, but still they are limiting the market very directly and regulating it very specifically from the top down, and they have much less violence, they have much less homicide rates, they have much less inequality and all the mental and psychological neuroses that are born of that. So in this non-aggression principle, and what frustrates me again is that everything you speak of I agree with within the principles that you advocate. See, I don't agree with that the idea of the market, as you conceive of it, is just that, a system of voluntary exchange with non-coercion, and people just follow this basic ethical guideline, that everything's going to be fine. I look at it from its root source and course of human evolution and using history as a guide. I look at the root psychology of what it means to have this concept that's prevailing in society, where you're supposed to be put on a pedestal for gaining while others suffer. This psychology and value system disorder is ever pervasive, and it really does define the state. And I can't.
Well, okay, but sorry, I'm waiting for you to take a breath, but I feel I'm going to wait in vain, so I'm going to have to interrupt you for a sec. So this idea that
It's the guy who just rants and rants and rants.
I know. He just goes,
It's just breathtaking.
I know. It really is. I've known people like that too, actually.
Yeah.
suffer is foundationally
I
incorrect.
like how Peter Joseph starts off insane and goes after 3 minutes into insane, even longer. I timed that was 8 minutes of insanity. Molyneux starts off insane, then ends. Molyneux starts off insane, then in the middle sounds more sane, and ends with insanity again.
Yeah, wow. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
would say it's praxeologically incorrect.
Which is interesting. He said praxeologically incorrect because praxeology is the ideology behind it. Austrian economics.
Well, so what a fucking surprise, yeah.
No, but he's saying praxeology is incorrect. This is his own words he just said. So he just kind of.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Nice.
I know you know this, but just for the listeners, of course, fundamentally, if you and I exchange something and there's no coercion involved, I don't have a gun to your ribs, I don't have your children hostage or anything like that.
It's interesting that he would use the idea of holding children hostage because for all his talk about non-initiation of force and all of that, right? He's in his abortion videos fantasizes about locking a woman in a cupboard until she has the baby, so if she wanted an abortion. So he can talk all he wants about it, but as with all libertarians that I've ever known, there's always a hypocrisy there.
Yep.
Exchange something voluntarily. By definition, we are both better off because of that exchange, right? So the old example is if I have $1 and you have a pencil, and we voluntarily exchange those two items, then by definition, praxeologically, in reality, foundationally, rationally, empirically, I must want the pencil more than I want my $1, and you must want my $1 more than you want your pencil, because we're freely exchanging those things.
In theory, but I think the Libertarian Socialist Friends great example of if you're in the desert dying of thirst and someone has 1 million bottles of water and charges you $100 million for one of those bottles of water. In theory, you both benefit from that because you want that bottle of water more than the $100 million worth of debt that you're now going to be in for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's clearly an absolutely immoral situation.
There's also a lot of this, like, voluntary talk, like we just Molly mentioned the pencil and the bottle, the pencil and the $1. They're talking like it's like the fucking the atmosphere of what they want is like the atmosphere of the 1800s, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, exactly. I will give you 6 chickens for that piece of meat. Yeah, it's ridiculous. We've gone so far beyond that, but yet they really are this kind of, they call it the Dark Enlightenment or whatever.
Arini's now picking up the term, calling himself the Dark Enlightenment.
Well, I mean, Molyneux's no better, really. He might see himself as ethically pure, but he isn't, really.
So in a free market exchange, the two parties who voluntarily exchange are by definition better off. They have, and this is true if I decide to go and work for someone rather than start my own company, I choose that as a better course for myself. If I choose to go and start my own company, I've both worked for people and started my own company. It's just a matter of personal choice. As long as there's no force involved, as long as there's no fraud involved, unlike your unfortunate...
It's so ridiculous. Anarcho-capitalists believe that fraud is a means of, like, profitable business. Like, I've had... Yeah, they believe in the idea of fraud. So, like, it's real.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it goes in more fundamentally than that. The idea of... what about not wanting to be homeless? Is not coercion?
Exactly. Like,
What about not wanting your family to starve to death?
Yeah.
Is that not coercion? Is that not a force and a power that your boss holds over you that you would not voluntarily given up?
Such bullshit. Like,
with the video production company, by definition, both parties are better off because they have both.
Honestly, I have to admit, I hate Thunderfoot on so many levels, but his Molyneux takedown was really funny.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah.
No, it was perfectly good, but in the same way that his Sarkeesian effect takedown was really good after he'd appeared in the film.
Yeah, exactly.
Voluntarily to perform that particular exchange. And so there's no way to get around that. That's just a basic fact. Now, if you use the government to print money and give it to you before the inflation hits the poor, which is wretched in the foundation, unfortunately, of our economy, if you use the military-industrial complex, most of the jobs that have been created since the financial crash of 2007 have been in the military-industrial complex. It's completely evil. And this is the mass murder. But, I mean, what on earth is the mass murder? As I sort of go back to this point, what does this have to do with the free market?
I understand. Once again, you blockade, and this is the concept of truncated frames of reference that I'm still in the midst of describing, and we can talk about voluntarism in a second. In pure vacuum and in the void of space, these theories hold true. In other words, you can have perfect circles when there's nothing else drawing influence. The fact of the matter is we live in a constant continuum of pressures. Let's jump into voluntarism, if you don't mind. And I don't use the same simplistic view as you do, and this will explain why. So
I would
voluntarism,
really appreciate it if you would stop calling my view truncated and simplistic. If you prove that my view is truncated and simplistic.
Yeah, please don't tell the truth about my just worldview to my ridiculously stupid audience, please. I prefer if you continue to lie and make me look good.
Yeah.
But then it's just bullshit ad hominem, right? So just refrain from if I can ask for that intellectual respect, refrain from constantly insulting my position. I don't believe I've constantly insulted yours.
Okay, no, I'm not trying to insult yours, and I'm sorry you interpreted that. When I say truncated,
No, so simplistic and truncated are terms of respect. I see.
No, simplistic and truncated are
Oh my god, the passive aggressiveness is like dealing with the fucking knitting circle. What the hell is happening here?
It gets worse by the last 5 minutes. Is
viable distinctions that I'm using in the association.
Prove it, don't say it. Prove it. Prove it, don't say it. That's all I'm saying.
You can keep stopping me from speaking by acknowledging that, or I can keep going. Can I talk?
No, I'm just asking you to lay off the ad hominems. I'm
sorry. Listen, I'm gonna stop right here. I'm not trying to be offensive. I want you to understand that I, like you, share a frustration with the way the world is, okay? If you see any element of agitation come from me, it has nothing to do with you. I really do respect what you're trying to do, and I agree with the great majority of what you put forward. I think your perspective and values when it comes to human development and the things that I haven't been able to research everything that you talk about, but I've really, really enjoyed listening to the things that you speak of and your capacity and your talent in oration and communication. I am coming from a very serious position when I look at the flaws of this planet, and I cannot, when I use the term truncated and simplistic, I mean those in the most quantifiable, if that was even possible, terms. And I'm going to give you examples, and I'm going to explain as we move along. Voluntarism, action based on non-coercion is probably the best definition, right? Voluntarism. Mm-hmm. Okay. There are two basic broad presuppositions, if you will, inherent to this common concept, and especially in economic use. The first is a little bit difficult to describe because it's hard for people to relate to it at all, but I'm going to give it a shot. The first is this distorted implication of free will, as though any action we manifest exists in a vacuum, absent the ever-pervasive conscious and subconscious social and psychological pressures we endure.
Right, that again.
I know. I think he's doing it. I think Monty's doing that intentionally to shut him up, like psychologically.
No, I don't know. It might be a glitch. Who knows?
Yeah.
Have a limited capacity to control their own behavior. It's a fact. We exist in a continuum of social influences that are invariably subject to the behavioral propensities and reactions of the culture we inhabit. That said, as a broad overarching consideration, the second more specific issue is that there is a clear and present fallacy that engagement at all in the market system is voluntary, as though we are all just equal in our reductionist existence as voluntary exchangers. This just might be the most absurd concept of all when it comes to this type of worldview. The market system's structural imposition for survival itself, in my view, unnecessarily, given the state of technology and our capacity to create an abundance, coerces all human beings to submit to labor for income and to engage in the act of...
I feel like Joseph...
Okay, I actually agreed with that. I actually agreed with that point. I think that's a really good point.
No, Peter Joseph says in his argument the same thing over and over again, is paraphrased over and over again. It's the same message, just paraphrased, spit it out, paraphrase, regurgitated, recycled, paraphrased. Did you hear like the way he's saying, like the words he's using, the catch-all?
Yeah. It's a lot of it's just repetition. Yeah.
Oh yeah, repetition.
That they like it or not. It's not voluntary. And believe me, if it was voluntary, I would be fucking gone. I'd be on the hippie planet where people actually share ideas and resources and not act like spoiled children fighting over everything. So in the core root principle of voluntarism, it's thrown right out the window because the system is intrinsically coercive, okay? And that's a powerful point, because when you begin to look at the stress of our society,
but sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not following what you're saying.
Okay.
How is voluntary trade coercive? That just seems to me like saying lovemaking is rape. It just seems like you're just jamming two opposite things together and calling them the same.
Because the act of trade itself is coercive. I'm not saying that.
And how is the act of trade coercive?
Because people have to trade in this system to survive unnecessarily. They have to do something. They have to.
How do they have to trade?
They have to either trade.
They can go and I mean, 98% of the world's surface is uninhabited. They can go and live in the woods, and they can grow their own food, and they can hunt their own animals. I don't understand how it is they have to trade.
That's a wonderful point. I think that's hilarious. I think it's great to look at a global economic system and decide that it's voluntary for people not to have to engage in the market system. That's hilarious. If I could do that...
Sorry, but saying that's hilarious is not actually a rebuttal.
No,
I mean,
no,
people don't have to
right.
trade. I think that the point that I'm making is it's to their advantage to trade. I think people find that the division of labor, like I fish and you grow wheat and we trade or whatever, the division of labor and all of that.
That is literally the system he wants. To go back to the fucking 15th century where you fish, I grow grain, and we swap them. It's ridiculous. You fucking...
I wonder how good Molyneux will be in a Settlers of Catan game.
That's it, yeah. He literally thinks we can go back to the age of civilizations. And I'll trade you 12 gold for 4 horses.
Exactly. I dominate at that game.
Mate, we should do an online one because I would rip you up.
Yeah, okay. They have that actually. They have those online, like stream.
Yeah, I love it because I can allow my anti-imperialism to dissipate for a second, and I become the most rapacious imperialism the world has ever known.
Specialize in doing things and then trade the result.
Well, I'm British, so it comes natural.
What?
So I'm British, it comes naturally.
Okay. Yep.
Everything. I think people find it advantageous to trade, but saying how that somehow forces them to trade, I think is not clear to me.
I watch the vast majority of my friends who got out of college exist in occupations and in institutions to get money that were nothing in respect to what their talents were, had nothing to do with them. They despised it. I've watched people commit suicide. I had a friend commit suicide because he couldn't get a job after such a period of time. He had no sustenance. His entire sense of self-worth was so demeaned. These types of things don't have to exist.
But we both agree that what we're talking about now is not the free market. So when I talk about the free market and you start saying, well, I know people in this environment, I don't understand what that has to do with what we're talking about.
We do not both
see. Now, this is the thing. This is what I mean about there's no actual real world difference between capitalism and crony.
Yeah.
That he's more than happy to accept the crony capitalism of the creation of the internet or the spread of cell phones to poorer families and all the rest of it. But once you get to the bad bits, all of a sudden, that's not the free market, that's the government. It's ridiculous. It's like a 6-year-old.
Yep, it is. Which is also, like, I haven't really looked into it that much, but, like, the aspects of, I respect, Murray Rothbard was actually against a lot of anarcho-capitalism, voluntarism. He was an Austrian house. This thought, like, a Molyneux piece is more Ayn Rand based than like Rothbard. Rothbard is rejected by a lot of people, so is Alex Greenspan, because they're more for cronyism, not voluntarism.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, you get what I'm saying, right?
I don't know the people you're referring to, but I get the general concept. Yeah.
Not the free market. I am stating that the fundamental principles that underlie the free market, the absolute core of every single school of thought of market capitalism, if you will, is intrinsically inherent, has an intrinsic inherent quality that gravitates to all the propensities I'm speaking of. This is the free market. Whatever happens is real.
Sorry. And again, I have to be pretty technical here, if not just downright rational. The free market is voluntary exchange, and the state is the initiation of force. These two are opposites. Exactly. It's like saying that lovemaking is rape or theft is charity. You're just mingling these two concepts together.
Okay.
The free market specifically repudiates the actions of the state, which is the initiation of force against usually legally disarmed citizens. So if you say, well, our current system is the free market, despite the fact that it's dominated by the state, which doesn't conform to any of the principles of the free market, I think is missing the point.
No, that's your definition and your assessment of principles. I'm actually looking at the real world. I'm looking at the fact that, as I said earlier in the initial principles fallacy, that the state is in fact an outgrowth, an arm of the power and differential advantage and gaming theory needs of the market itself. It is there just as anything else. There are people behind the scenes in government that make an enormous amount of money in the context of market economics, in the context of trade, in the context of everything that you speak of, but they use the arm of the state to their advantage for their elitist purposes. Do I think that's right? Absolutely not. I would love, Stefan, to see the type of market that you talk about. The problem is it's impossible. There will always be a gravitation towards these power consolidations. Some of them may work for a little while, some of them may falter, but there will always be that propensity. And when I say the free market...
But Peter, come on. Just saying that something is impossible doesn't make it so. You sound like somebody in the 16th century who's saying, well, we've always had slavery. Slavery has always been part of human society. Slavery has always been part of trade, and therefore we're always going to have slavery. Now, I agree with you. It's terrible that the slave trade is still occurring, but generally in the West... we've kind of got away with direct slavery. Now we have kind of indirect slavery through taxation, but that direct owning and buying and selling of human beings has been largely bypassed. So saying something is impossible and will never be and so on, I mean, for a guy who's kind of a futurist, it seems to me that's kind of a leap.
Well, I would say that it's just as impossible as the fact that the law of gravity, I can't decide to just step on this wall over here. There are fundamental psychological principles that are inherent to the market psychology. It goes back to my initial fallacy that I call the delusion of system-contrary moral imposition. And this idea of voluntarism and everything that goes underneath that.
Like his fucking eyes are twitching.
Yeah, because this is someone questioning Jesus.
Exactly, yep.
Of it becomes moot in the wake of what this system is actually generating. And that's it. I mean, you can call it the free market or not. I do not believe...
so if you say that something becomes moot, you've made a point. Well, I say that your system has become moot. Victory! I mean, you're not making any... You're just saying stuff. You're not actually making a case. I put a very clear principled case that there's a difference, in fact, an opposite moral quality to the initiation of force, which is the state, and to voluntary free trade, which is exchange for mutual benefit.
You have literally accepted
that's possible.
You're saying, Kevin?
Well, his version of the free state has never existed then.
I know.
So he can't take the credit for saying, "Oh, capitalism works," because his version of capitalism has never existed.
It's like arguing with a 6-year-old.
Yeah, it is. It's arguing with a 6-year-old.
You're not actually making a case for anything. You're just using a lot of adjectives. You're not proving anything.
That's you. Have you ever watched your show, Molyneux? For fuck's sake.
I think my favorite
phrase. He just repeats the phrase "non-initiation of force" and "free market," and that's it. He thinks he wins. I would occasionally say, if you disagree with me in any way, you want me to be killed by the government. Brilliant.
I love Molyneux's call-in shows the best. Like those are like whenever he has a call-in show, like the honest conversations, I'm howling during those things.
Well, my favourite one ever, in the Descent of Manosphere episode on him, the woman going on about taking her husband to a whorehouse.
Yeah, I saw that one. I actually watched. I rewatched it a few days ago, actually.
Yeah, he's fucking great. he's a fucking mental case.
Have given an enormous amount of evidence and argument towards a number of broad economic issues. You have ignored every single one of them. And you're persisting with this tiny little box of economic idealism, of voluntary trade, as though these two machines in their marginal utility...
Oh, so now you use the phrase tiny little box. I guess that's proven something too. You see, you're just using adjectives. You're not actually making a case.
Listen,
tell me how the state conforms with non-initiation of force, because you're lumping it in with the non-initiation of force, which is free trade. You're saying that the state is a natural outgrowth or part of the free market, and I'm saying the initiation of force is the opposite from voluntary trade. So you can tell me I'm incorrect if I've made a mistake at that. I'm certainly happy to hear it. You can't just brush it off by saying it's a tiny little box. Tiny little box is not an argument.
Tiny little box is an analogy. It's a way to get a communicative point across.
Still not an argument.
Well, no, it's not an argument, but I'm facilitating many arguments simultaneously as much as you choose to dismiss them, clearly. The state is an outgrowth of the market system because of its fundamental predicated premise.
The whole problem is I will agree so much with Peter Joseph. The fact that he's such a fucking asshole is really just I'll agree with him. I don't want to. I feel ashamed of agreeing with him in this debate with these two piles of shit presented right here.
Yeah, basically, yeah, he's the slightly less massive pile of shit, but they're both still piles of shit. And we're over halfway through.
Yeah.
If you can't see that, I don't know what to
What is
say.
the fundamental predicated premise? That's not an argument either. That's just a word salad.
I have stated that about.
Again, the lack of self-awareness. The lack of self-awareness from Molyneux is breathtaking.
The reason I brought this video up is because this is exactly like Trump versus Sanders.
Yeah.
As far with respect to the fact that within the state is the mechanism of the market. The market creates the state because of its interest in self-preservation, differential advantage, and the basic gaming strategy. I'm sure you're familiar with all of the macroeconomic utilitarian assumptions by Nash and the like. The entire premise of gaming within this system is based around these levels of advantage. And to think...
So sorry, let me just understand here. Look, I certainly agree with you that people in what's left of the market attempt to use the state to gain advantage over others.
Again, what's left of the market?
Yeah,
What's left of the market. So there was some time in the past where he thinks there was an absolute free market.
Yeah, 1750.
Can you point me to this point in history? Because I've missed it.
In America, the year I think it was 1760 or like 20 years past the Revolutionary Wars when they started doing regulation of the economy.
Well, yeah, but they also had fuck tons of slaves. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can really call that a free market.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that like free market. I'm talking about with gold.
No, absolutely, yeah. I'm not saying you're putting that argument forward. I'm saying to them, even if you go back to before regulation existed, you still had people, literally human beings, being owned. That's not a free market.
No, it's not. No, it's not a free market. Oh my god! To them, it is. It's like arguing a 6-year-old. It's just why, what, how.
Coercive, destructive, and I would say evil in nature. So I completely agree with you there. But when you say the market creates the state, what you would then, I think, seem to be arguing was that at some point in the past, there existed a free market, which then created a state where no state existed before. And it would seem to me, based on my understanding of history, that governments have been the dominating factor throughout history, and they can be sort of local tribal governments like the warlords and the Genghis Khans and so on, of the more sort of formal modern state. But it would seem to me that the market doesn't create the state, but the market, that there is a state.
That's such a fallacy right there. The Mongol Empire was an incredibly organized empire within itself. They built castles and machinery and shit.
Well, yeah, but to expect any historical nuance or to give the non-white people any credit for anything, don't be silly.
Exactly.
Which, to some degree or another, facilitates the size of the market, whether it enforces contract or whether it's heavily taxed or heavily regulated or not. But because there is the state, there is a competition. Like, I sort of view the state like there's a gun in the room and there's a bunch of gangsters. And this is an analogy not approved, so I'll be clear of that.
Smooth criminal. Stefan Molyneux.
But there is a gun in the room, and a whole bunch of gangsters are trying to get a hold of that gun so they can shoot each other. And the state is that gun in the room. And so when there is a government in society, then market...
Hold on. Use Molyneux's argument from earlier.
Yeah.
Just saying little box isn't an argument. So just saying gun in the room isn't an argument.
I know, exactly. Ugh. Molyneux does. I've noticed that, in watching Molyneux's videos, you'll say something in the first half, then contradict himself in the third half, and in the middle, it'll be neutral territory. No, I can send you a link to where he did. The worst example he did, the one that was in his video, The Truth About Karl Marx. He contradicted his first main argument points to the end of the video. He went full circle, saying one statement, then by the end of it, just completely contradicts his own logic behind himself.
Well, this is Stefan Molyneux. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call them, business owners, will always attempt to use the state to gain power over their opponents. You can't get a monopoly in the free market that's ever been sustainable without using the state. And so there are statistics that show that there's almost no single better investment that a company can make than a congressman or, you know, a congresswoman. That investing in lobbying the state provides you returns in the hundreds of percent, something that is really hard. In the free market in general, you're likely to make 3 to 6 to 7% profit. But if you invest in politics and you get a congressman on your side, you get 200, 250.
Well, no, right. Let's say that Stefan Molyneux's dream comes true. The anarcho-capitalist world.
Yeah.
What is to stop a very rich business hiring a militia to run all of its opponents out of town?
You already do that. It's called Walmart.
Well, how could you do that?
Exactly.
So basically, it's not a matter of monopolies are unsustainable. Yet in some nicey world where civil order reigns, we have like a police force and an army to enforce laws. But in your anarcho fucking fantasy land, that isn't the case.
Exactly.
From how much you have to spend in lobbying to how much you get in government benefits. So the existence of the state draws, you know, just simply by the logic of what's left of the free market, it draws people to use the state, because any CEO who is going to eschew political action is going to be replaced by the shareholders with a CEO who's going to embrace political action. So I agree with you that there is definitely a huge incentive to pursue political action and gain economic advantage through the violence of the state over your competitors. But that's because as a state, in a free market, it would not be possible to do that. In like an anarchic, no state free market.
What I find interesting about that argument is that you're basically admitting that propensity is there. You're basically saying that it's
if there's a state. Yes,
it's a natural propensity.
Do you want to fast forward just a little bit of this, because I've already watched this and I know what.
Yeah, please do, because quite frankly, at this point, it's just Stefan Molyneux saying I'm right and Peter Joseph saying I'm right.
This is where it gets good.
Okay.
That could manifest in all sorts of other ways. I mean, I look at the state as just one example of how this power consolidation tendency materializes. And the truth is,
didn't you skip forward like 1 minute or something?
No, I skipped 10 minutes.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is it?
Yeah, look, see.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Here we go. This is where it gets
Which means I'm going to be uncompetitive with other people who are not interested in recreating the state, but rather making nice sweaters. But if there is already a state that has this power and this authority and this influence and this violent capacity already in every port, and everybody respects it or at least believes it's legitimate, then I just have to go to a congressman, give them a bunch of money, and then in return I get a 40% duty on all sweaters coming in from overseas, and therefore I can raise my prices. But in a free society, it's so expensive to recreate the state. The moment somebody tries to do that, they'll render themselves completely uncompetitive with everyone who's not trying to do that.
I don't see how you can assume that with the underlying ethic inherent in the market system, that these types of power abuses, by whatever means,
I can't. I've heard it's the same semantics over and over again. We've already watched it like an hour of it. I know what a good part. Like, here's a good part.
Strong and all these supposed fail-safes. The only fail-safes that can stop that are the legal system. The legal system is the state. This
Here we go.
Generate a system pressure generation that happens naturally throughout the system because it's, again, predicated on scarcity. That's not enough to go. Point being is that my original point, is about how the
money and through just wanting to jack up resource consumption in order to drive GDP, in order to drive job creation, to make everybody want to vote them back in, are incredibly short-sighted when it comes to long-term economics.
Look how utterly exhausted Peter Joseph is.
Yeah, this I know.
Because it is. It's like with Stefan Molyneux, because he's so impenetrable to any semblance of rationality or logic. It's like punching a brick wall. It's just you're gonna get.
Are you talking to me, Kevin?
Yeah, I want you to be shot by the state. That clearly, because I disagree with you in any way.
Should I be shot? Should I be shot? Should I be thrown into a pit of inner rape? Should I be shot? Should I be shot? That's sick! That's just all words.
It's really the opposite of sustainability.
I agree it's short-sighted, but I see that again. I don't split hairs with this with what you're splitting. I don't. It doesn't matter who owns it necessarily. It matters what the process is and what the dynamics of the economic manifold is, how it's engaged, what the needs are, what is the basis of
I'm just curious.
Cell phone
Because
companies, the entire
also,
basis. Let me
sorry,
finish
go
the
ahead.
point. The entire basis of competition, say multiple cell phone companies existing at once, creating enormous waste of creating multiplicity of goods that are unnecessary, holding proprietary knowledge that should be shared to create the best.
Oh, look at the face! Look at Molyneux. The clenched jaw. God, it's like he's going to explode.
Slight improvements, and it's a mentality. It might be very civil. It might be like muskets. They're walking right towards them, and they're speaking in very cogent language. Well, it's not someone who starts a convenience store per se. It's the act of actual competition against others. You could theoretically have one convenience store in a town that has only a very small population. That's all they ever need. It would have a natural monopoly. I look at the denial of principle continuum as throughout. In other words, in many ways, when I look at it's obviously there's an element of basic moral ethics. I'm not trying to deny that there isn't at some point somebody somewhere isn't going to draw the line based on their development. And on average, most in this culture have a very, very grand sense of ethics, but they're unfortunately forced into
for like Apu from The Simpsons for running a convenience store. And this doesn't seem absurd to you.
The way you describe it in the context of the way that we have been culturally conditioned to think about violence. You know, we look at 9/11.
Thank you. Come again, as
Stefan
would say.
Poverty in the United States unnecessarily. We
But
look
not
at
because of convenience store owners. That's what I'm saying.
But the ethic that underlies the survival mechanism inherent to the system, as I've denoted about 1,000 times, in this delusion, this continuum fallacy that persists, where we try to differentiate, where we differentiate between different types of aggression. You know, I don't.
Well, there's a
variety of factors. There is the history of imperialism, which is an entirely state-driven activity. Foreign aid.
No, whoa. Time out. Not an entirely state-driven activity at all. There were lots of private companies which lobbied state governments and national governments to further expand.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing. Stefan Molyneux enjoys little else. Enjoys nothing more than.
In terms of giving money and weapons to third world leaders,
You still on, Kevin?
No, I'm done.
Global arms sale, which is a state-based activity. See if you can spot a pattern here. The global arms trade, which arms despots and warlords in the most savage. The billions of dollars are given every. There is, derivatives market being many times the world's GDP person. There are other particular steps that.
Is just a horrible manifestation. I understand that people will run to the state for power consolidation, but if there's an interest already for people to want power consolidation because of the structural psychological values inherent in the market, then I don't see how you can possibly defend against its development in one form or another, meaning development of some type of coercion, inevitable coercion of one person against another outside of the game board that we like to think exists in the market, when in fact there are no ends.
Wait, here's where it gets
It's just the psychology inherent. The non-aggression principle, voluntarism, and coercion.
Give me a second. I'm getting to the good part.
Okay.
Here we go.
Mainly because when we see what the structural violence of our system does, when we see when people are broke and they're coerced by the very structural system into certain acts that they do not want to do for the sake of survival, for the sake of their children. Again, I'm sure you think that the state is probably the cause of all of that too, but I think it's inherent. These terms are not applicable. If you really want to care about human life, then you need to make the necessities of life available to all without a price tag and without the need to compete. Structural violence is the leading cause of death and public health problems in the world today. Listening to her stories for a decade about the horrors of the poverty of rural North Carolina, you cannot stop generations of child abuse. There is such a deeply synergistic attribute, our social
Oh my gosh, he's literally been talking Peter Joseph for 6 minutes.
God almighty. All right, let's just play it out from now. I think we're close enough to the end.
The part where Molyneux comes in at the last, 2 minutes. You gotta see.
Has just gotten fired. That's full of aggression. That can't.
It's around the 2:40,
Okay, just play it from here because we've got. I think we're close enough to the end there.
True public health and ecological sustainability. So I can't emphasize enough the need to recognize the system consequence. And I don't agree with this system because it's creating violence on a scale that is wholly unnecessary, and it's truly tragic. So I suggest that we come back after this conversation, since I know we disagree, but I can come back and I can speak about what a resource-based economic model actually entails, how it's not a centrally planned system, and the technology that underpins it that can actually allow a completely democratic process overcome the means of production problem that's put forward by Mises and the like. I think that would be for a great future conversation. And Stefan, I appreciate you having me.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. I certainly enjoyed the workout. Your verbal agility is really quite astonishing, and I mean that in a very positive way. And so I thank you for that. It was very good fencing. My arm is tired. So for my
that kind of furious self-masturbation will tire your arm out, Stefan. Yes.
Your material, if you could just give your vital statistics in case anybody doesn't know how to reach it.
The main hub for this type of information is the zeitgeistmovement.com. Of course, I have a personal page, which is just media stuff, called peterjoseph.info. I run a web series. I just finished its first season.
Whenever people say that, like how people can get hold of you, I'm always reminded of the story. I forget who it was. It was a member of the parliament, and someone said, "How can I get hold of him?" He said, "Just drop a letter down your nearest sewer. It'll get to him."
And I also produced 3 independent films under the film title Zeitgeist heading, Zeitgeist movie addendum moving forward, and those can be found in all the stuff's available for free, by the way. At
and
Zeitgeist.
a Black Sabbath video.
And I was fortunate enough in I still do contractual work. I'm still a working freelancer in the industry and still do productions. And of course, I'm working on a new film called Inner Reflections, which is going to be a trilogy, a live action trilogy that basically takes.
It was crowdfunded. It was never made.
So I'm glad it wasn't made because it sounds awful. I don't know anything else about it, but it sounds awful.
Sci-fi fantasy look at a transition into a new economic system. So that should be fun.
Fantastic. For your listeners, I'm working with Sean Lennon on a documentary modestly entitled Truth. I'm not sure if it's the complete truth, but hopefully there's truthful bits in it.
That was really revealing right there about Molyneux.
By the way, when it says Sean Lennon,
yeah,
it's my website at freedomainradio.com. Thank you again, Peter. Thank you, Michael, for setting all this up, and have yourselves a great evening, everyone.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Molyneux, after when he cut air, I can just see him screaming. Ah!
Yeah, but that was. I'm glad we skipped some of that because that was painful.
Heavy cringe. I'm gonna end the stream.
Hip hip.
Goodbye. Good night, everyone. Goodbye.